Since earliest times, humanity has been on the move. Some people move in research of new economic opportunities and horizons. Others move to escape armed conflict, poverty, persecution, terrorism, human rights violations. Still others move because of the effect of climate change and natural disasters. Many move indeed for a combination of these reasons. I am Irma Ginei, and this is Hijrah Podcast. This podcast is produced by IOM MENA Regional Office. In this episode of Hijrah Podcast, we'll talk about migration and climate change. People have always moved because of environmental changes and natural disasters. This is not new. But what is new now is that we're living in an era where climate change is related to human actions and its effects are obvious. To talk about climate change, we have invited Ulrich Diasso. He is an expert in the development and implementation of climate resilience and early warning system, and he's the focal point for Burkina Faso of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Hello, Diasso.
Hello.
Could you mention some of the most significant modifications climate change has produced, which have an immediate impact on people's day-to-day life?
Thank you. The direct effect of climate change is the increase of temperature. Observations have shown that temperature has increased by 0.7 degrees Celsius since the pre-industrial period. This increase in temperature is projected to be about 0.2 degrees Celsius every decade in the next 50 years to come. And this has implications on ice melting and increase in sea levels, causing losses of lands for the coastal zones. The other sign of climate change is the increase in frequency and severity of extreme climate events, namely drought, floods, strong winds, and even tropical cyclones. And all these combined together have implication on people's lives. The first sign of this implication of climate change on people's life is its impact on agriculture, which is the main prominent activity in most of the countries. Because agriculture is rain-fed, the variation of rainfall amount due to climate change is leading to loss of yield in crops and leading also to food insecurity in most of the places.
So how is the increasing of floods affecting people's life?
Due to a past drought event, people have moved closer to rivers, and usually flood occurs along the riverside where people are relocated, leading to disaster and sometimes a loss of life and goods. Combined with drought, flood is one of the most affecting disaster in most of vulnerable communities because they do not have adaptive capacity and they do not have access to reliable information to actually prevent the occurrence of those climate-related disasters. Actually, there are two main things that make people actually come closer to riversides. It's water availability and food availability. So because
which are related, right?
Which are related. And what can be done to actually help them prevent is to provide them with timely, accurate climate information so that they can get prepared to prevent and preserve themselves from any occurrence of climate disaster.
But do we have the capacity in the developing countries to provide these information that are so important for people's life?
In developing countries, all the institutions related to disaster risk reduction platforms are in place to provide climate information, but their lack of capacity to actually be able to fulfill their mandate.
Why there is a lack of capacity? Is it human resources lack of capacity or equipment?
This lack of capacity includes equipment because they need to observe, to collect data, and the network used across those countries is really poor to actually be able to provide real-time information. And they don't have also skilled human capacity to be able to do good forecasts and provide timely, accurate forecasting and early warning system to the population.
Diasso, based on your experience, how can we prevent or mitigate the effects of climate change?
There are different ways to mitigate climate change effects. One way is the promotion of green technology and clean energy and make it accessible to developing countries. Another way is the improvement of the capacity of national and regional climate institutions to be able to provide timely, accurate climate information to the end users and mainstream them into policy and decision making at national and regional level in order to be able to meet the Paris Agreement. Another way is the improvement of agriculture methods by using new technology into smart agriculture. And finally, reforestation is also a good way to capture carbon.
Are there initiatives moving towards the mitigation of the effect of climate change?
Yeah, countries have come together and set intergovernmental panel for climate change, which had been created in 1988. This panel provides policymakers with scientific reports, but also guidance for the adaptation and mitigation of climate change. So the second initiative that we should mention is the Green Climate Funds, which avails funds for vulnerable community to adapt themselves to climate change, but also avails funds to private sector to promote green technologies, clean energy, and also improve climate-smart agriculture.
In the second part of the podcast, we'll talk about migration and climate change. In the recent years, it has been a growing recognition of the need to incorporate migration into global climate and environmental mechanism. To tell us more about it, we have invited Hind Essaoui Benani. She is the IOM Environmental and Climate Change Specialist for West and Central Africa and the MENA region. Hello, Hind.
Hello, Irma.
How is migration and climate change related?
This is very important to address migration into the context of climate change and environmental degradation. First and foremost, because migration is an adaptation strategy to climate change, and also because migration and environment have in common the notion of resilience. Resilience is key for individual communities and territories at several levels, social, economic, and environmental levels. And also, migrants are key players in resilience and development of host territories and also territories of origin.
You are the IOM specialist for MENA region, which is the region where migration is a key trend and the consequences of climate change are visible. What is the biggest climate and migration challenge in the region?
Migration and water nexus is an important challenge in MENA region. Besides hosting around 14% of the global international migrant stock, the region is one of the most water scarce in the world, with 18 out of 22 states falling below the renewable water resources annual threshold and 13 states falling below the absolute water scarcity threshold. Agriculture, job creation, and especially for youth and labor migration should be also further considered at several levels. For example, in terms of policy coherence between agriculture, water, and migration policies, to better address protection of migrants and internal migrants, workers, of resources, and resilience of individuals, youth, communities, and territories. Last, I would say that urban areas are also key. There is a need to prevent rapid, unplanned urbanization as this increases local vulnerability as people growth puts extra pressure on environment, but also basic services such as water. Cities' resilience to flash flood is particularly challenged. Urban and peri-urban agriculture deserves to be more considered as it is disappearing and contributes to the resilience of urban communities and territories. Drought is still a major driver of rural-urban migration in MENA region. Moreover, the World Bank listed Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, Morocco, and Syria as countries that will experience a significant increase in water stress driven by climate change in the coming years.
So, how is IOM addressing migration into the context of climate change?
Strategically, what IOM proposes at global level to address migration into the context of climate change and environmental degradation are solutions for people to stay, solutions for people to move, and solutions for people on the move. Concretely, what does it mean? It means that we should promote the production of knowledge for evidence-based policies, specifically on the migration water nexus in MENA region, but also to promote policy dialogue and coherence through capacity building and a stronger governance. And concretely, action can also inform policies. For example, this is important to explore the creation of green job opportunities for youth in rural areas, but also in urban areas. Also to give value to indigenous knowledge and to mobilize diaspora into sustainable practices or sustainable investment.
And from Cairo, Egypt, I am Irma Jinai, and this is the last episode of Hijrah Podcast. This podcast is produced by IOM MENA Regional Office.